Hope you're all doing well. Our brave treasurer and secretary and the rest of the officers have pulled another one together here, and really appreciate the opportunity to have everybody tune in and see something and learn something. Again, considering what's going on. Hopefully it'll be over soon. Not much for announcements other than don't forget to do the chat to everyone to log in your PG license if you want a PDF and a certificate for tonight. And that's about it, other than you know, tune in for next month too. Look it up in your wonderful email from Amy, who puts together these great announcements.
Who was also featured on our Harrisburg area Geological Society Facebook page the other day.
Well, you know what? I need to look at that. I didn't know we had a Facebook page because everybody said we didn't know that we had one, but I'll have to look. Okay. I'm not a Facebook much, but I can look. Yeah, Jeri Jones, thanks for coming. Thanks for agreeing to do a talk on the Northwest River Trail. And I've been on parts of it myself, and I'd like to know more. I did notice that quite a bit of the remnants of the Pennsylvania Canal along the sections I've done. I'm looking forward to doing a section by Chickies Rock and seeing some good outcrop. But Jeri, this is his second talk as far as while I was president. And the first one was the rail trail along Cadorus Creek. And this one is along the Susquehanna on the east side. And of course that threw me when it's the Northwest River Trail, but it goes from Columbia up to Falmouth, which is just south of 3 Mile Island. And the sections I've been on, they just finished paving the northern section. So you can skateboard or anything else on that. Jeri has been an educator, an author, a blogger, a reporter, a teacher of geology, and put together brochures and books and so forth for teaching geology to children and other people, the general public. He got his Bachelor of Science in Catawba College down in the Carolinas. He's a consultant on clay dirt tracks for a lot of local dirt track aficionados. And as far as I can tell, he even did a book or participated in a book on geology from a hot air balloon, it looks like. Anyway, I'll hand it over to him to tell me what to look for on that trail. Okay. Thanks, Jeri.
Thanks for having me here. There we go. Okay, well, again, thanks for having me tonight. And we love to educate people, so that's why I pass some facts on to you. Many of you, of course, are probably familiar with some of this trail, and particularly the south part with Chickies Rock. This project actually was co-sponsored by the Susquehanna National Heritage Area, and river towns have sponsored actually the printing of the guidebook, which you'll see at the end, and already saw several people in the room having it tonight with them. So not sure how many of you realize that the world looks like a cat playing with a ball, but on rainy days, we find things like this to do. So if you don't know Lancaster County real well, I'll give you a little guideline here. The Piedmont Upland lowland section, which is mostly the limestone and shales, are like in two divisions in central and the northern part of Lancaster County. The Piedmont Upland section is quite scattered over in the north eastern section, and then of course Chickies Ridge area, and the big part of the uplands is the southern third of Lancaster County is the uplands, and finally the Piedmont Gettysburg Newark section runs through the northern boundary of Lancaster County. And by the way the Northwest Lancaster County Trail goes, which is the black line, we're cutting across a number of formations actually. So that's why it's a great trail to see stratigraphy and a little bit of structure. Unfortunately, rock outcrops are not very common at all. So thanks to Helen Delano for doing the geological maps for the book, and to the Pennsylvania Geologic Survey. And basically the trail passes through all these formations: the Chickies, the Antietam, the Vintage, Kinder's, Ledger, Buffalo Springs, and the Buffalo Springs Snitz Creek group, which includes the Milbach in there also. And then we get into the Triassic and Jurassic, New Oxford, Gettysburg, Diabase also. So we pass through all those formations from Columbia up to Falmouth. About a 13-mile ride if you care to bike it. So we're going to start south and work north. And basically, I had to throw some other limestone pictured in because there's not really any outcrops in the Columbia area. So between Willow Street, Conestoga Folding, and Pinkerton Road in Lancaster County, the Conestoga is pretty well hidden under Columbia. And of course, throughout the region, there were limestone kilns. This particular one's over in Wrightsville, across the river from Columbia, which was the start of the J.E. Baker Company that you'll hear about in a little bit. So there were actually a number of kilns all over the place. Most have now been destroyed or torn down. Unfortunately, this complex is getting to be pretty worn. There's been some talk about somebody stepping in to preserve them, but that hasn't quite happened yet. All right, so we start marching up the Northwest Lancaster County Trail out of Columbia, go under the Route 30 bridge, and your first site is on the right-hand side. It's called the St. Charles Furnace, one of at least 5 furnaces that were in this area between Columbia and up to Marietta. St. Charles Furnace was a charcoal furnace, 1854 to 1897. So if you scout around the area, you will see all the ingredients between the, of course, the limestone, the charcoal, and iron ore. And you can probably find some other artifacts if you go digging around. So it's that's pretty well preserved at this point in time too. So we start the march again past the St. Charles Furnace, and we move into the Piedmont Uplands section, the Chickies Ridge area. We get back into the older stuff. So Point Rock Tunnel, for example, is a great exposure of the Harper's Formation, the phyllite. Mostly, there's a little bit of quartzite stringing in through here too, but most of it's the phyllite of the Harpers is very well exposed, and some drill borings that have been done to build the tunnel are seen. So anyway, some pretty good structure in around the tunnel area if you have not been there before. A little bit further north is we encounter furnace number 2 that you can see, and it's called the Henry Furnace Clay. This is actually the end wall of the tenement house that once stood there. Henry Clay Furnace operated from 1845 to 1899. It's probably one of the most documented furnaces in this complex area. Archaeologist June Evans, who had been with Millersville University, did a lot of archaeology work here at the house, and did recover a lot of artifacts and record a lot of history. If you wonder where the furnace was, though, the furnace was up behind the tenement house to the left of kind of a trail that heads toward Chickies Ridge. Very little left of the furnace, except for a couple of little small foundations that you're able to see up there. So it's pretty well been torn down and destroyed, but it is still visible, particularly in the seasons like winter and early spring. And just for a little bit of humor, this creek off to your right is called Jones Creek, my last name. So I can say I have a creek named after me. Further north, another industry that existed there was the Chickies Silica Sales Company. They actually were taking the disintegrating Chickies rock and grinding it, crushing it into sand, and being railroaded out. And actually also the canal was just across the trail from where this operation was. So the concrete walls kind of give it away. And as we go through this ridge south of Chickies Rock, you can actually really tell where the Chickies and the Harpers intertwine. The Chickies is more stubborn, outcropping out closer to the river. The Harpers is receding into the hillside. But this is kind of a neat photo out of the Geologic Survey photo library. The overturned folding here in the Chickies. And then we, of course, have Chickies Rock, historical picture taken by either George Stoss or Anna Jonas. And on the left here is the Chickies sand, silica sand crusher while it was operating. So I love historical pictures like this. And of course, we get the Chickies Rock, probably the most documented anticline on the East Coast. Certainly one of the best exposed anticlines. Many of you know, and you've been there a number of times, I'm sure. A number of universities do come here from out of state to look at Chickies, and as well as some other features in southeast Pennsylvania. So 110 feet tall, beautiful vista to see the Susquehanna River, which I think we'll have a picture here coming up of that soon. And of course, the ideal plunging anticline outcrop in the core of the Chickies anticline. And actually, I found out while doing some research and through by June Evans before she did pass away, that this was actually the first archaeological site in Lancaster County. That's why it's called 36 LA01. Samuel Haldeman, who I will speak about in just a second, supposedly found an Indian dugout canoe behind where I'm standing. So that became the first archaeological site registered in Lancaster County. These ripple marks, which are not right on the trail, you have to kind of walk around the north side of Chickies Rock to see them. They've been a little bit of controversy. Several geologists with the USGS feel that they are not ripple marks, but they are intersections of cleavages. So it's kind of now a debate. Are they ripple marks, or are they really the intersections of the cleavages? But they're very well exposed on the north face of the rock, but again off the beaten path. Okay, Samuel Haldeman. Maybe some of you have heard of Samuel Haldeman. He was actually he was a geologist that worked for both the New Jersey Geologic Survey, Pennsylvania Geologic Survey in the very, very early going. And he also became an authority in many, many different areas. But he built a mansion just north of the Chickies Rock. I believe he moved into the house in about 1850. And he lived there the rest of his life. In fact, died there, and he became a naturalist. He wrote the first treatise of the freshwater mollusks, which actually is still being used today. Became a real expert on history of languages later in life as his eyesight was going bad. But Mr. Haldeman was very, very knowledgeable, had a very keen eyesight, and he explored Chickies Rock and found, as you know, as the Scolithus linearis fossil, what we believe are the fossilized worm tubes in the Chickies, the lower Cambrian age. And he did send a piece to Mr. Charles Darwin, who wrote back to Samuel Haldeman and said they are called Scolithus. Back in those days, they were considered about 600 million years old. Today, they are lower Cambrian, around 541 million years ago or so. So Chickies Rock is actually the type site for these fossils worldwide. So it kind of makes the site more important too. Samuel also in his travels around the world did actually put together a huge collection of minerals from all over. And the Linden Hall for Girls in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which I found out is the oldest independent girls' school in America, does have his collection there, which when I was doing some work with about Mr. Haldeman, I was able to go to Linden Hall and see their collection. There's a lot of work to be done with going back to the collection and making sure that the labels are right. But on the left here is a sample of tourmaline from Haddam, Connecticut. That is Mr. Haldeman's original label. So that was kind of neat to see that. North of Chickies Rock, again, you may have seen maybe the steps coming down off the trail. This leads into the Samuel Haldeman mansion area. There's no physical structure there anymore. If you do, again, scout around, again, primarily during the winter, early springtime, you will see some rock walls and things of where the mansion was. But it did burn down, I understand, in about 1910. It was burnt down. There's an interpretive sign along the trail at this point in time, talking about Haldeman's mansion. And one thing to note is a hidden secret. I actually did not know about this until we started to put the guidebook together. Was that back behind the interpretive sign, there's this rock that's not Chickies sitting there. And I never paid any attention to it. I always thought it was just a Chickies rock sitting there, but somebody brought to my attention it's not. It actually is, what happened here? I can't move my slide.
If you need to stop sharing and then start resharing again, not a problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here. Okay. That didn't work either.
Does your arrow work?
Yeah, it does. All right, I think oops, there we go. So that rock is actually, I did find out by taking a tour of the furnaces in the area that rock is called the a salamander, which is from the Chickies furnace number 1. That was located actually right along 441, out near where there's a pump station there now, where you used to park to go to Chickies Rock. It's now closed off. When they were putting a pipe in along the road out there a few years ago, they discovered this hunk of iron ore and slag, and they actually drug it into the woods to where it currently is for preservation. But nobody seemed to know that it was really there. So it's called a salamander. If you don't know what a salamander is, it's kind of the waste iron and slag that gets underneath the tap holes to where the iron comes out of a furnace. It solidifies more in the bottom of the furnace. It can clog the furnace up and hold up the operation. So apparently, number of times furnaces had to be cleaned out, get the salamander out. So it's kind of an interesting rock sitting there. All right, just north of Chickies Rock, if you know the geology a little bit, is the famous Chickies Overthrust, where the rocks of the Chickies Ridge are basically thrusted up and over what I call the Marietta Valley, which is back in the lowlands section now of the Piedmont. And there's no clear evidence. You have no idea that you walk over it unless you are a geologist and you know what's going on. But it's a neat thing to talk about with school groups. There is a nice outcrop of the Buffalo Springs limestone along Chickies Creek, a couple hundred yards north of Chickies Rock. And the Buffalo Springs is pretty messed up at this point. And but this is one of the best limestone outcrops along the whole trail. So again, Cambrian age carbonates, and the dam that's actually right there also had a date of 1908 on it for anybody who cares about historical structures. Now we get closer to Marietta, and we move into what was called originally the Chickies Furnace number 2, became the Eagle Furnace, 1854 to 1899, and you see the smiley face on the side of the building, the eyes, nose, and mouth. And this is actually the furnace building. Still exists. Of course, the other buildings have been added on. Now owned by a contractor. A little bit further north at the main parking lot for this area is the Musselman Vista Iron Furnace Center. This was done by a friends group of the Musselman Vista Furnace. They have restored the office building, and they are working actually on restoring some of the features of the furnace, which, as we look at this, was off to your left in the woods. But this is one of the groups that helped me financially with the production of the guidebook. And they do have, they're open normally under normal conditions on Sundays during the spring, summer, and fall. And they host 2 furnace walks, usually one in April and one in late October. So you might want to check out the website if you care to visit there. 22,500 tons of iron ore were made there annually. All right, so we're going to go from Marietta now to Bain Bridge. And geologically, as I said, we're in the lowland section. So we're seeing the ledger, the antietam, the vintage, in a very low synclinal structure, kind of paralleling the river at this point. And we get into the Buffalo Springs stuff a little bit closer to Bain Bridge. So Riverfront Park, which is one of the another access point north of Marietta. You have the bridge composed of the Diabase. We're not really sure where the Diabase came from, if it came from the Falmouth area where we know there were several small quarries, or it came from a quarry across the river at York Haven. We're just not totally sure. But around the parking area, you can see pieces of rock that they are using for blocking off parking and driveway access. The vintage formation, this is a limestone, again, lower Cambrian in age. And this is a good place to talk about the islands, because there's actually several good islands right off the shore of Riverfront Park. That all the islands in the Susquehanna River are called bedrock islands, although they do have sand that's attached to them. The foundation are all bedrock. So again, this is the vintage formation outcropping in the middle of the Susquehanna River. And again, Susquehanna River has become nationally known for its water gaps. This is actually a picture from the top of Chickies Rock, looking at Helen Point. I'm sorry, we're down at Breezy View. I'm sorry, the Breezy View overlooked Chickies Rock is on the right, Helen Point is on the right, on the left side. And you see how the river is coming, making a bend there, and that's due to the Chickies overthrust. So again, most of you know that the Susquehanna River played a huge part in the meltwaters of the Ice Age, some 8 to 10 to 13,000 years ago. A lot of down cutting took place. Some remarkable river terraces are found 200 to 300 feet above the riverbed, and something that I have written about in the York area is about the profile of all the tributaries is actually a reverse profile, because the Susquehanna River down cut quickly with the additional water and power. Tributaries did not have any additional water or power. So all the tributaries were not able to keep up with the Susquehanna. So they actually get steeper as they get closer to the river. Thus we have waterfalls at most of our tributaries from Middletown down to Aberdeen. So that's caused some flooding issues in the York area, particularly about 4 years ago. Now, if you go between Marietta and Bain Bridge, and actually further north, closer to Falmouth, you'll see the river terrace gravels in the floodplain. Much of the trail, by the way, is in the floodplain of the Susquehanna River. So that's one thing that's why we don't see a lot of outcrops, but you will see the river terrace rocks here and there as you would ride or walk up the trail. One of the hardest features to get to, but it's spectacular, is the Shocks Mill Railroad Bridge. And this goes across, of course, connects with York County near down below south of York Haven, actually at Saginaw. And Shocks Mill Bridge is made out of the New Oxford sandstone, which was quarried from the brownstone quarries in Waltonville, which is east of Hummelstown, one of the largest sandstone quarries in the Triassic here in Pennsylvania. So the drill holes are still present. So that's called the Shocks Mill Bridge. Another point I want to bring to you attention is just north of Shocks Mill Bridge. We do have the Stony Brook Diabase dike coming through. There's no clear-cut exposures of it, unfortunately, right along the trail anyway. And if you've ever been to the Stony Brook Dike, it is a classic Jurassic dike coming through eastern part of York County. And this is the type site for it at Stony Brook, east of York, along close to Market Street and the Pleasant Acres senior home, with the Diabase and the Conestoga Formation, now Hornfells. And if you go to Rocky Ridge County Park, trail number 6, you'll see float of the Diabase sitting there. So it does cross the river at what we call Haldeman's Riffles, and and you can find this piece of float Diabase just north of the Shock Mill Bridge. There's just one hunk of Diabase sitting there to kind of mark the spot of where the dike probably is. Okay, further north is a historical area called the Billmeyer Quarry. Started way back in 1845 by the Haldeman family. You've been hearing Haldeman quite a bit here, but the family actually opened the first limestone quarry here, and it was shut down in 1957. So there are still some historical structures here. The J.E. Baker Company is the one that operated it last. And in the 1970s, early 1970s, actually, there was some native silver and silver minerals found in this quarry at the south end of it. And shortly after that, the quarry was taken over by the Bain Bridge Scuba Center and became a popular scuba diving center and school until about 5 years ago, when the scuba center went under, and actually the Lancaster County has now purchased the property, and they are using it for backup water source for the nearby Lancaster County solid waste incinerator. So beautiful setting, for this quarry. Of course, one of the famous places along the trail, if you're not a geologist, are the White Cliffs of Conoy. They've been written about a number of times in the newspapers over there. This is the calcium carbonate waste that's been dumped basically on the west side of the trail, between the trail and the river, and has become hardened, and it overlooks the river very nicely and very steep. That's why they do have the snow fence there for people that like to take chances. From there, you can also see the ledger formation, ledges coming through across the river. Seeing the strike of the formations. And as we get closer to Bain Bridge, you go through a little development, a little village called Locust Grove. And from the trail, you'll be able to see this stone house called the Samuel Haldeman Birthplace. It is operated actually by the Friends of Samuel Haldeman. They do, again, under normal conditions, do have open houses during the summer, some special events. And there's a collection of some of the Samuel Haldeman's artifacts and material inside the house. The house itself built out of several different limestones, several pieces of diabase, the brownstone, that's the New Oxford brownstone. Does have a slate roof on. Appears to be from the Peach Bottom Formation in either Lancaster or York County. So this is where Samuel Haldeman was born in 1812. Stone Bridge right there at separating the trail with the railroad. Buffalo Springs on the right, Gettysburg Formation, sandstone on the left. A little bit further north, as we approach Bain Bridge, we have the Milbach Limestone, which is upper Cambrian in age, highly folded. Here, this is actually an outcrop just south of Bain Bridge. So it's one of the very few limestone outcrops in the on the trail, basically. So when we get to Bain Bridge, we do a drastic change. This is where we come into the Mesozoic Basin, and someplace along the trail is basically the dividing line between the Paleozoic stuff and the Mesozoic stuff. We can't really find that. We can't find that area because based on the lack of outcrops. But in the parking lot at Bain Bridge, there are a little museum built. New Oxford sandstone, the Milbach limestone, Diabase, another piece of Milbach limestone back here too. Also at the, oops, okay. So as I said, there's a unconformity, obviously, between the Paleozoic and the Mesozoic, someplace just very close to the parking lot. Again, we use that as kind of a teaching tool with school kids to just kind of get them understand what's going on. The New Oxford conglomerate, there's actually a stone wall here, which was part of the Conewago Canal that came down that side of the river, and selected Mesozoic sandstone and the conglomerate making up much of that wall at that point. There is a very small outcrop of the New Oxford sandstone under a bridge, a very small tributary that's actually intermediate flowing, but the New Oxford sandstone, again, the traditional dip direction is to the northwest. Here it's about 15 degrees dipping to the northwest. You see more rock exposures in the historical structures than you do with Mother Nature along the trail. And again, here's one of the locks from the Conewago Canal. Again, this is mostly diabase making up this particular wall. Very durable, obviously, and not weathering real quick. Here's two diabase blocks that have been pinned together. And if you like feathering of diabase with a chisel, incredibly hard to do. It had to be. And so there's a lot of industrial archaeology kind of involved if you go this part of the trail between, like I said, between Bain Bridge and Falmouth. Actually, a lot of that trail up through there is running on the towpath of the canal. Up at Falmouth, we do get into the hornfells. Actually, some zeolite mineralization here. This is at the north end of the parking lot, under, very close to the tree line that's up there, the forested area. And of course, some of you have visited the famous potholes in the Diabase when the river is down. Again, the water force that made these potholes incredible to drill out in the Diabase rock. Again, the Falmouth Trail doesn't quite go that far yet, but this is like a northern extension to the trail. Trail does have the people do have aspirations to extend the Northwest Lancaster County Trail further north yet, hopefully into maybe Middletown eventually. And as you said in the introductions, basically all the trails been pretty much paved at this point, which makes it very accessible for riding bikes and mostly, I guess, all non-motorized vehicles. So, if you're interested in getting one of the guidebooks, they are sold at the Zimmerman Center in York County and at the Welcome Center for the trail and in Columbia. But if you want to come through Jones Geological Services, go to our website, jonesgeo.com, and they are $20 with the postage, and we'll send it right out to you. But our address is on our website. So it's going to bring me down to the end. Hopefully you and I have seen eye to eye on this program, and maybe it'll give you an excuse to get out and do some exercising as we're enjoying this nice weather now too. So I thank you for again having me in this Zoom tonight. I will put a plug in if I can. One more thing is that we do a Zoom rock room every Tuesday night through our business. We have 30 to 40 people who have been joining us like almost for a whole year now. And anybody who's in the room tonight, if you have a program that you'd like to present to the general public, we'd like to hear from you, because we have a very close-knit group now, and it's a lot of fun. Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. If you want to become a part of that, you just have to send us an email saying, I would like to have an invite. So again, thank you. And I'm going to stop sharing and come back to you all.
Thank you so much, Jeri. That was a super talk. I really enjoyed hearing all of that. I myself, have small children and a dog who love to go for walks and everything, and there's only so many trails and stuff, and I know this trail is a really nice one, and it's so much nicer to learn more about something that I actually take the family to and stuff on a regular basis.
Right.
All right, everyone, this is your time to ask questions in the chat bar. So if you have them, write them down, and I will share them with the speaker. Does the diabase, so Jennifer asks, does the diabase ring if struck with a hammer?
Not like Bucks County's diabase, but it does ring, yes.
Is there any gold available for panning along the trail?
Yes, there is. It's not on the trail property though. It's on private property near Falmouth, actually. But you have to be on the. You have to be. There's a stream on the east side of 441 near Falmouth. So, but it's all on private land, unfortunately, at that point.
I think that is the first time that I've been in a tags talk where someone asked about if there's a way to go get gold from the speaker's talk. So that is a first, and that's truly valuable information one can take away from a professional talk. All right, Greg asks, what is the source of the iron ore used in the furnaces along the river?
Actually, much of it came off of Chickies Ridge, Grub Lake, Mud Lake, were actually iron mines. We also do know that a lot of the iron ore was barged across the river from Accomack to Chickies. That came out of the Pigeon Hills and the Haldeman Hills on the York County side. So it was really local.
Michael asks, when did you graduate from Catawba College? I graduated in '71.
I actually graduated in '77. actually, I don't know if anybody remembers Sam Burkheiser with the survey. He actually was a year ahead of me at Catawba. So, Michael, hello.
Before we get to our next question, Kent wants to remind everyone that a previous HAGS talk related pumping tests of the J.E. Baker Quarry, which determined no connection between the quarry and river, despite it being carbonate rock, including a fault.
Oh.
I do remember that talk. Jim, Stacy asks, what is diabase?
Diabase is an intrusive igneous rock. Same mineral composition basically as basalt. It was magma that never got to the surface to form basalt, but it solidified into a rock. Some geochemists tell us that it was at least 4 to 5 miles deep when it solidified. So, the types, one of the best places to see diabase is, of course, the Gettysburg Battlefield at Devil's Den, Little Round Top.
Actually, while you're describing it, could you also give a brief synopsis of its extent? Because obviously, in Lancaster and Gettysburg, that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's within mostly the northern part of the Mesozoic Basin in southeast Pennsylvania. It intrudes up through mostly the Gettysburg Formation. It was the last hurrah for the rehealing of the Earth's crust when Pangea ripped us apart, and the diabase was acting like a scab to our crust after it was injured from all the rifting. So it actually, back to the question with gold, it actually is a source of gold in most southeastern counties in Pennsylvania.
I'm muted. Again, still taking questions. I have one while folk are coming up with questions. So based off of all of this, what of the sections you went over today, which is one of your favorites to go to?
I like the Shocks Mill Bridge for some reason. Just because it's like, in the middle of nowhere and it's hard to get to. If you get there and get back here, you got a good day. But not geologically, I think there's, you got the Diabase, you got the Stony Brook Dike going through there. You got the river gravels just south of the bridge, seen in the meadow there. It's all pretty cool, obviously, but what's behind me there with the Shocks Mill Bridge is, out in the river is where most of the cool geology probably is, but you can't get to it easily.
William asks, do the hornfels ring when you hit them?
No, they don't. They're not really ringable, if I can use that word. They're hard to break because it's pretty stubborn rock itself, but they do not ring, no.
I feel like I had actually recently read a book that was talking about the various singing rock localities, and this keeps coming up. I think it was a cave book. Okay. I can't quite remember. Greg asks, those potholes in the diabase are pretty cool features. What is the cause of them? He has heard that it was from small whirlpools of water and gravel from many, many years.
That's exactly true. Rocks probably the size, maybe a couple of inches in diameter, get in there with the constant water, particularly when the Susquehanna River was much higher than what it is today. Had that incredible energy from the Ice Age, and they just kept working on those rocks. Particularly the Diabase, being one of the most stubborn rocks you'll ever see. And now we have those tremendous potholes.
Let's see, Kent would also like to add another attraction in a proximity of at least 3 pubs are in Marietta for resting during a hike on the trail.
and they're all good.
Again, there's all sorts of valuable information we're getting from this. I enjoy this presentation. So we'll give folk just another moment to ask any questions, and a quick reminder again. I know I sound like a broken record, but if you haven't put your name, PG number in the chat, you're running out of time before your credit will get counted. So make sure to do that. Well, if no one has any more questions, I'm going to give it back to Kent. And actually, Kent, you can probably just unmute yourself.
All right, I'm unmuted. Thanks, Jeri. That was interesting. And hey, is there any chance that they bring the York Trail down all the way down to the Susquehanna?
The York Trail?
Yeah.
It's kind of going in the wrong direction.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was thinking, boy, it would be a great connection across that Chalks Creek Bridge to the York Trail if the railroad went out of business.
It's probably you probably got 6 or 7 miles in there that would have to be connected somehow.
Yeah, I was looking at it the other night on the Google Earth, thinking, but we appreciate your giving the talk to us and telling us what to look for while we're out on that trail. And thanks a lot.
Our pleasure.
All right.
All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. It was a wonderful talk. Again, thank you, Jeri. I'm going to be ending this meeting. I will see everyone next month at our following meeting. And yes, we're getting some clap emojis. Very nice. Yeah. I will do some real clapping.
All right.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.